Hello, I'd like to share with you something called healing our land and our climate. The idea is that we need to think about healing our land first before we can think about doing anything effective or meaningful for our climate. This is a course that I am teaching starting July 9th. Let me share with you the here's the image that goes with the course. This is through Biodiversity for a Livable Climate, which you can find at bio4climate.org. And then you scroll down to where you see this image. That way you can click search to take the course. Now, I'm going to show you a slideshow here. Let me give you a preview of the slideshow. This is the course I'm offering. This is how to find it on the website. We're going to talk about we have a livable planet because we have a living planet. I will show you what a forest does. We will talk about water cycles, and then we get to my home landscape, which illustrates some of the principles of healing our land first so that we might heal our climate. That's my home landscape. If we get through that, we'll talk about the benefits of healthy soil. So we're talking about the benefits. We're talking about healing our land first. If we want to heal our land, then we must also heal our soil. If we want to know how we're treating the land, then look at how we're treating our soils. And many of the world's problems can be solved if we treat our soil right, and we'll get to that. And then this is how to make healthy soil, whether it's your home landscape, whether it's a farm, whether it's a forest, how to make healthy soil, and then what is in healthy soil. After we do all that, I will invite you to sign up for the course, which you can do so at bio4climate.org and look for this image on the website as you scroll down. So let's go back up to the top. We have a livable planet because we have a living planet. Life creates the conditions for life. This is the untold story in our climate coverage. I have been a climate reporter for 6 years. I closely watch and follow the coverage of climate change, and I can tell you that the coverage of climate change is severely lacking because it lacks a biological component. We have a living planet because our planet has the biology that creates the conditions in which it might thrive. A forest tends to create the conditions in which it might thrive. And that is the main message of Biodiversity for a Livable Climate, and it's the main message of my climate coverage. And insofar as I come to an audience with something to share that relates to climate change, I am seeking to shed light on a situation where we're just getting the wrong messages. But if we get the right messages, then we can take appropriate action for our climate and to address issues such as pollution, to address issues such as low agricultural production, etc. Now, here is an example of how life creates the conditions for life, how our living world creates the condition in which the living world might continue to survive and thrive. I have a numbered list here. A forest is all these things. A forest is a sponge, a moderator, a cooler, a humidifier, a canopy, a windbreak, a biotic pump, and a habitat. Let's go through each of those things. A forest is a sponge. So when the rain falls, the forest soaks up the ground. A forest is a moderator in that it moderates temperatures. It keeps it from getting too hot or too cold because the forest contains water, and the water is slow to take on heat and slow to release heat when it's cooling down. So the forest prevents this area from getting too hot or too cold. By contrast, a desert does not have very much water, mainly because a desert does not have very many plants. Plants are 50% water on average. And the desert gets very cold at night and very hot in the daytime. It has those extremes because it does not have very much water. Item number 3, the forest is a cooler. And the reason the forest is a cooler is because it is transpiring water. It is taking a whole lot of water and soaking it in through the roots, and the water moves up through the trunk, out through the branches, out through the leaves, and evaporates. A forest is a cool place because it has all of this evaporating water. Step out of the shower, step out of the pool. It feels cold because water is evaporating. When we sweat, it feels cooler because water is evaporating. That is the reason we sweat, because when water comes out of our sweat pores and then it starts to evaporate, that cools us off. We need to be cooled off when we're in hot weather and or when we are exercising or exerting ourselves physically. That illustrates the power of evaporative cooling. The forest also illustrates the power of evaporative cooling because it transpires a lot of water, it sweats or perspires a lot of water, and that cools off the forest. Item number 4, a humidifier. All of that water that's transpiring, all that water that is exuding out of the leaves of the trees and the plants, it humidifies the area so that the air is more moist, and that moisture keeps the soil from drying out. Without that moisture, the soil would quickly dry out. That's why we need to keep our forests, because the forests provide protection from the sun, the wind, and the sun and the wind and the heat tend to cool things off. But a forest is a humidifier and prevents the drying out. Number 5, the forest is a canopy. It casts shade so that it protects the ground and the other plants from the harsh rays of the sun. Number 6, the forest is a windbreak. It prevents the winds from flowing so fast, and this lowers the speed of the winds for purposes of not destroying what humans have built, but also for the purpose of not drying out the soil. So the forest tends to create the conditions in which it might thrive. Item number 7, the biotic pump, is where when you have evaporation, then or when you have condensation, the forest creates condensation. When you have that condensation, then it creates a little bit of a vacuum, and then then there's precipitation, and it repeats the process. There's condensation, there's a collapse of air, which then draws in moist air from all around. The forest tends to draw in the moist air that it needs, and then it precipitates and creates conditions where the plants might thrive. And then you repeat that process. It is called the biotic pump. Number 8, the forest is a habitat. that it's a habitat for living things, not just for animals, but for plants, for fungi, for microorganisms, all of the moving parts of an ecosystem, all of the components of an ecosystem. The forest creates the habitat where such things might thrive. Why are we talking about this? Why are we going into all this? The idea is that we have a livable planet because we have a livable planet because we have a living planet. Life creates the conditions for life. That's why we need to protect life on our planet. That's why we need to make the biomass go in the right direction instead of the wrong direction. What do I mean by biomass? Biomass is just a way of quantifying the total quantity of living things in a particular place. So we can talk about the total biomass on an acre. We can talk about the biomass on the entire globe. The biomass on the entire globe has been declining for the last 5,000 years because of human activities, deforestation, agriculture, all sorts of things, overhunting, overfishing, pollution, pesticides. And so the biomass on Earth has declined by 50% in the last 5,000 years, according to Václav Smil, in an article that's published on the website of Greenpeace. If you search for Václav Smil, VACLAV, Smil, SMIL, Greenpeace, loss of biomass, you'll get that article. The idea is that biomass has been declining. The total quantity of living things has been declining for the last 5,000 years, and it has declined by 50% in the last 5,000 years. This is a serious issue for climate. It's a serious issue for the total health of our biosphere. The total health of the living things in the world is partly a function of the total biomass. And we need to make that trend go in the opposite direction. We need to start increasing the biomass in our world. We need to increase the biomass on our farms. We need to increase the biomass in our oceans. We need to increase the biomass in our home landscapes and in our forests. So you can have a forest, you can decrease the biomass by cutting all the timber, or you can decrease the biomass by spraying herbicides. That also adversely affects the biological diversity. And those are trends that we need to make go the opposite direction. But we don't talk about this because our environmental dialogue and our dialogue around climate is all about carbon dioxide, which is an extremely narrow understanding of what climate is about. The living biology of the earth affects our climate. Let's go to the next screen. So we've talked about all these things that a forest is and becomes. Now, let's just talk about this same or a similar forest in relation to the water cycle. The water cycle, evaporation, condensation, cloud formation, precipitation. This forest impacts every stage of the water cycle. It impacts evaporation. So all of this water goes in through the roots, up through the trunks, out through the branches and leaves. This is evaporation. According to the U.S. Forest Service, an average sized tree will transpire or evaporate 11,000 gallons of water per year. If you take that and divide it out, it's about 50 gallons per day, or about 200 liters per day. Every single mid-sized tree is evaporating this water, and that contributes to the next rainfall, to subsequent rainfalls. All this evaporation that is occurring, much of the rainfall, possibly half of the rainfall that we have, comes from evaporated water that came from forests and plants. Item number 2, condensation. The forest causes condensation because when it's evaporating water out of its leaves, the forest also causes it emits bacteria and organic compounds which cause condensation. So the forest and our plant matter has a role to play in the condensation of water droplets so that it can then later rain. By the same token, our plants and our forests have a key role to play in cloud formation because clouds are condensed water droplet. When you look at a cloud, you're looking at condensed water droplets. It's not just water vapor, it is condensed water. It hasn't precipitated yet because those little water droplets still need to coalesce into a raindrop, but it is condensed water. That's what causes clouds. So the forest creates the conditions in which clouds might form. Lastly, you have precipitation. So evaporation, condensation, cloud formation, precipitation. Precipitation is like brings the water cycle in full circle, and the forest is a place that is cool and moist. The forest does not cause the precipitation, but the forest does allow for precipitation. It's easier for a raindrop to fall all the way to the ground when it is falling into a cool, moist environment, as opposed to a hot, dry environment like a desert, like an urban area, like a bare crop field, which can get very hot in the summer or before planting or after harvest. And so the forest creates the conditions in which precipitation might occur. Now we're getting to my home landscape. So let me share with you a little bit about what we're talking about in my home landscape. I'm going to show you some pictures of my home landscape, which is like, if you're a homeowner, you can do some of this and it's not that hard. In the course, Healing Our Land and Our Climate, I will take you through some of the simple, easy steps to create your own, a thriving home landscape that exemplifies and embodies what we need to do for our living planet. So let me share with you some pictures from my home landscape. And what I'll be showing you, be showing you the outcome, but I'll also be talking about what are some of the steps and why is this important or helpful or useful or beneficial. Why should we want this? So here we are, a picture of, this is my backyard. This is looking out my back door. This, compared to what? 4 years ago, this was a lawn. It was a lawn with some trees, but it didn't have all of this understory. Let me just take you through some of the names of the plants. This on the left is called ironweed. Over here, you've got jewelweed. You've got some more jewelweed over here. Up here, this is pokeweed. Down here, the gold area is some brown-eyed Susans, and then you've got some evening primrose. Over here, you've got some pumpkins. This is called blue mist flower, and then over here I've got this includes violets. It includes a little bit of jewelweed. It includes some, what's the name of that? The bee balm. I'll show you a good picture of bee balm here in a minute. It's got some evening primrose. Anyway, these are just words. If you don't know these particular plants, these are just words, but it's like I'm telling you, giving you their names so that I can show you that I have a special relationship with these plants. I'm also showing you that there is diversity here. One of the things that we want is diversity. We want in the world for the purpose, for the sake of climate, for the sake of our water, for the sake of our wildlife, for the sake of healthy food for humans to eat. We want biodiversity, we want biomass, we want organic matter, and we want water in our landscapes and in our farms and our forests. So the four things I just named are correlated with one another. Let me talk about that for just a minute. So I just shared with you how those four things that I named are correlated with one another. If you have more of one, then you have more of everything. If you more biomass, biodiversity, organic matter, and water are all correlated with each other. So if you want more biodiversity, then you want to put in more biomass, all of which is correlated also with plant matter. So we want more plants so that we can have more biomass. Plants themselves constitute some of the biomass, but also the plants constitute a place where other species might live, move, thrive, and have their being. When you have more plants, you have habitat have food and habitat for animals. When you have more plants, you have food and habitat for fungi and for microorganisms. So the way to get more plant matter is, the way to have more biomass is to have more plant matter. The way to have more biodiversity, which means the total number of species in a particular place. The way to have more biodiversity is to have more plant matter. And when you have more plant matter, you also have more water. When I show you this picture of my home landscape, I'm showing you a place that has more water in it. And that water is, everything needs water. Plants, animals, fungi, microorganisms all need water. This space has more water than it had before. When plants grow, then it has more water. So I'm of the opinion that most of the world's problems could be solved if we had more spaces like this. I think most of the world's problems could be solved if we were to attend to the living systems around us. So we take care of the living systems around us, then the living systems around us could take care of us. If we took care of our soil, I just made a bold claim and I want to back it up. I think most of the world's problems could be solved if we took care of the living systems around us. Most of the world's problems could be solved if we took care of our soil, which is the basis for the living systems around us. If we took care of our soil, that would prevent flooding. Most flooding would be a thing of the past. Most, not all, but most flooding would be a thing of the past if we took care of our soil. If we took care of our soil, we would have a lot less flooding. If we took care of our soil, we would have a lot less drought. If we took care of our soil, we could prevent the decline of other living species. If we took care of our soil, we would have thriving communities, and because healthy soil is the basis for local food could be the basis for a thriving local economy and a thriving local culture. If you have thriving local economies and thriving local cultures, people are less easily manipulated, and therefore we would be able to. I'm going to click on this over here. Pardon my getting off track here. Yeah, I noticed we have a few people in the chat, so feel free to chime in and I'll try to address your questions. But so what I was saying is that if we treated our soils right, then most of the world's problems would be a thing of the past. And it's a bold claim, but you have to think how much of people's troubles are a result of poverty and poor land and bad water cycle, not healthy water cycles. Let's go on to the next slide here. I'm giving you a tour of my home landscape. This is the same thing as you just saw, just a little bit of a different angle. What you're looking at here is what's the brown? The brown in this picture is wood chips. So I'm doing with my home landscape what I recommend be done with many other home landscapes, and many of these same principles apply to farming, forestry, to restoring our deserts to the ecosystems they once were, and thereby increasing the biomass, increasing the biodiversity, having more plants, having more water, and giving our landscapes the capacity to produce healthier food. So the step one in my recommendations for your home landscape is to bring in wood chips. Where I live, you have chipdrop.com, and in most places in the United States, you can get free wood chips through chipdrop.com. The benefits of wood chips are as follows. Let me click out of this to share with you. The benefits of wood chips are as follows. They control weeds, they hold water, and they provide fertility. Those are all good things. Weeding, watering, and fertility are the three of the things that we work toward in our gardening, in our farming, in our home landscaping. If we can get those things with less effort, then we can get better results with less effort. So we want to bring in the wood chips. They bring you a whole truckload. If I'm helping somebody with their landscape, my first question is, do you have a place to dump a load of wood chips? If not, you're going to be operating on a much smaller scale. But if you can bring in the wood chips, then you can take care of much of your water needs, your weeding needs, and your weeding, watering, and your fertility needs just in that one act. So what you do is you bring in the wood chips. And what I have here, the brown places are, I dump these wood chips down first, and then I plant things over the course of time. I've been planting things here for about 3 years. I've been this is a little bed, and I'll take things from here and plant it elsewhere. But let me name some of the plants just to show you that we've got some biodiversity going on here. This didn't take very much work. In the scale of things, this did not take very much work. So here you have Biden's Aristosa, which is also known as bearded beggar ticks. That's going to create a lot of biomass. That's just getting started for the summer. Later on, it's going to cover it's going to be about 5 feet tall and about 4 or 5 feet wide. So it's a good native plant. It's going to create a lot of biomass. Over here, you have pumpkins. Those pumpkins are going to create a lot of biomass. Over here, you have evening primrose. They're going to create some biomass. Brown-eyed Susans growing in the shade. Who knew? You would have thought brown-eyed Susans would have to grow in the sun, but they're growing in the shade. They get a little bit of sun in the day's time, not much. Up here, I never planted this stuff. That's called, what is that? It's a pokeweed. So that's pokeweed. Over here, I did plant, this is elderberry. I did plant the elderberry. I did plant this here, which is coralberry. Got some little things down here that I transplanted from the front that are just, evening primrose, purple coneflower. Anyway, if we set the stage of our garden for success, then the garden does most of the work. The sun, the rain, and the plants do most of the work if we give them what they need to be successful. Here's a place in my front yard. What does this illustrate? Well, this illustrates, what's the brown? More wood chips. What are these wood chips? The first thing I did in this garden is bring in the wood chips. Dump a load in my back. I'm on my 5th load of wood chips now. So dump a load in the back, and I'll use it to carry, I'll use buckets to carry all of this. It didn't take that long, but so the wood chips control the moisture, they control the weeds, and they provide fertility over the course of time. Over the course of time, they capture rainfall. So that's one thing to illustrate here. Another thing to illustrate here is the biodiversity. I have two different types of milkweed. Milkweed is the host plant for monarch butterflies, which is to say that monarch butterflies need milkweed in order to live. The mother monarch comes in and lays her eggs on the milkweed. The eggs hatch, the caterpillars eat the milkweed, and that's how they live. They depend on if it weren't for milkweed, there would be no monarchs. So here's a regular common milkweed, and here is it's called butterfly weed. It's another species of milkweed. Pretty orange bloom starting this time of year. Here's some more brown-eyed Susans. And here, this is called it's not a cut plant. It looks similar to a cut plant, but it's called a cutleaf prairie dock. Over here, you have a white snakeroot, which is a weed. A weed is a complement in my view. It's a vigorous plant. But yeah, I did plant this, but it also grows wild. Back here, you have Monarda fistulosa. Another name for that is bee balm. Back here you have a type of goldenrod. I have multiple types of goldenrod here. So what does this picture illustrate? This picture illustrates biomass and biodiversity and organic matter and water. These plants are about 50% water, and the plants are transpiring water. They're sweating or perspiring or evaporating this water, and they do all the things that plants do. They provide the benefits that plants provide, and they provide the benefits that water provides when it is evaporating, meaning it cools down this space. It provides a lot of water vapor for subsequent rainfalls. It provides a cool, moist environment in which a raindrop is more likely to hit the ground, and it provides habitat. Case in point with the habitat is that these milkweeds support our monarch butterflies, with the result being things like this. This is a bumblebee on a Monarda fistulosa. It's a bumblebee on bee balm, and the bee is helping the flower, and the flower is helping the bee. Living things create the conditions in which they might not only survive but thrive. This bee is creating the conditions in which the bee balm flower might survive and thrive, and the bee balm flower is creating the conditions in which the bee might thrive. This is symbiosis. This is living things helping other living things, but more to the point, the living things work together to create a planet in which they might survive and thrive as a community. We take a look at the time, 30 minutes in. Should I try to show you the rest of the slideshow? Tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to click out of this, and I'm going to summarize a little bit of what I might talk about. And that is, one thing I could talk about is the benefits of healthy soil. Why do we want healthy soil? What's the purpose of healthy soil? So I advocate, in the world according to Hart Hagen, what we would do is drop everything and make sure we have healthy soil, because it provides all these, it prevents flooding, it prevents drought, prevents wildfires, it defines fertile land. Healthy soil defines fertile land. Healthy soil provides nutrients to the plants so the plants might be both nutritious and resilient. Healthy soil can solve hunger. Healthy soil can solve water scarcity because healthy soil holds on to rainfall and releases it gradually into the streams and waterways. That way, we can have the greater availability of water where people need it. What happens too often is that the rain falls and then we have flooding. We have flooding for human caused reasons. The flooding causes damage in and of itself, but what the flooding represents is that the landscape is losing the water almost as fast as you got it. We want landscapes that do not lose their water right away. We want landscapes that hold on to the water as long as it can. If we had healthy soil, that soil would hold on to the rainfall when it does fall, and then it would provide clean water further up in the catchment, or the basin or the watershed. So we want streams. If we had healthy soil, then streams would reappear where the streams have dried up, because what happens is that the healthy soil absorbs the rainfall and then releases it gradually into the streams so that the streams flow more continuously. If we had healthy soil, we would have stronger communities and stronger local economies, because people would have work and food closer to where they live. Healthy soil would make communities stronger. There's an excellent video series by Andrew Millison called India's Water Revolution. If you get on YouTube, type in Andrew Millison, Millison, then Andrew Millison, India's Water Revolution, then you will see it's a series of videos, but the whole thing is an hour or less. It goes to different places in India where they just did what was needed to be done to solve their water problems, and it creates stronger communities, partly because people have work in their communities and they don't have to go hours away. They don't have to go to the next region or the next country just to survive. When you capture the rainfall in the landscape, it gives you, it provides the basis for food production, for fresh, clean water, and for a strong local community, which creates local economies, which provides for peace. I'm going to recap that by showing you the slide that I've been reading from. When we have healthy soil, it prevents flooding, prevents drought, prevents wildfires. It makes for fertile land, because fertile land is by definition is defined by healthy soil. We have healthy soil delivers nutrients to the plants, making them nutritious and resilient in the face of hot and dry, wet and cold, pests and pathogens. Number 6, healthy soil cures food insecurity. Number 7, healthy soil gives us clean, fresh water much closer to where it's needed. And healthy soil can make for strong communities, strong local economies, and peace, because people are less easily manipulated when their basic needs are met. And war is caused by people being manipulated, if you ask me. What else have we got here? What else was I gonna? Let me look at the rest of the. So I was also going to talk to you about how to make healthy soil. The 5 Principles of Soil Health by Gabe Brown. Let me talk to you about the 5 Principles of Soil Health, and then I will show you the slide. This five Principles of Soil Health is my single favorite topic. I get it from Gabe Brown. Gabe Brown he says he did not invent the principles of soil health, but he has articulated and described them. So I was talking about why we should want healthy soil. Why am I talking about why we should want healthy soil? Because I'm talking about healing our land. The course I'm inviting you to attend is called Healing Our Land and Our Climate. I'm urging that we need to emphasize healing our land as a way of healing our climate and providing so many other benefits. If we're going to heal our land, the way to do that is to heal our soils. And the way to heal our soils is to attend to the 5 principles of soil health. Number 1, limit disturbance, which means no tillage or limited tillage, very limited tillage. Let's just say no tillage, and then there are exceptions to the rule, but let's just say almost no tillage for the most part, because that's physical disturbance. We also want to avoid chemical disturbance of the soil, which means avoid chemical fertilizers, such as the fertilizers that give us nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus. We can get nitrogen without getting it from a chemical fertilizer. We can get phosphorus without getting it from a chemical fertilizer. We can get potassium without getting it from a chemical fertilizer. We need to do just that. We can do just that if you will read Dirt to Soil by Gabe Brown, or if you will attend the course Healing Our Land and Our Climate, or keep coming back, Healing Our Land and Our Climate, or you can keep coming back to this YouTube channel, or you can go to my Substack, my blog, my online blog on Substack, which is harthagen.substack.com. So principle of soil health number 1, limit disturbance, which includes physical disturbance and chemical disturbance. Number 2 is armor the soil surface. That's my wood chips. So you can armor the soil surface with leaves, with wood chips, or with crop residue. Those are the main ways to armor the soil surface. And in fact, in other words, we don't want bare soil. Bare soil is a no-no. You want to almost never have bare soil, because the bare soil gets dried out, it gets compacted, it loses its fertility, and it cannot absorb water. So we want to armor the soil surface. We want to, if you're a home landscape, use the wood chips, because the wood chips are going to cover the soil surface. They're going to absorb water. They're going to conserve moisture. They're going to keep the bare soil. They're going to keep the soil from drying out. So that's number 2, armor the soil surface. Number 3, build diversity. That everything I've been telling you about diversity in your home landscape, everything about diversity worldwide, diversity in our forests. We need to build diversity because, ecological health is literally defined by diversity. Ecological health means a diverse ecosystem can provide so many services that a degraded ecosystem cannot provide. A diverse ecosystem is going to absorb more water from rainfall and hold on to it, so you can prevent both flooding and drought. A diverse ecosystem is going to be habitat for more living species. A diverse ecosystem is going to nurture the soil. It's going to build soil health, and that's why we're talking about this. We want a diverse ecosystem below the ground. We want a diverse ecosystem above the ground. We want diverse ecosystems in our waterways, because diverse ecosystems, they cycle carbon, they cycle nutrients, they cycle water, they improve the soil, and they provide habitat for humans and our fellow species. Number 4, living roots in the ground. We're going through the principles of soil health, how to make healthy soil. Living roots in the ground. Nothing is better for soil than living roots in the ground. We're going through all these principles of soil health, Nothing is better for soil than living roots in the ground. If our soil is degraded, one of the main, probably the main reason for that is that we don't have enough living roots in the ground. And because what happens when living roots are in the ground, what happens? So plants do the following. Plants take carbon out of the air and turn it into sugars, and sugar is a carbohydrate. So all your organic molecules are mainly carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. Plants take the carbon out of the air and they put it into these organic carbohydrates, fats, and proteins are all organic molecules. Carbon is one of the main components of organic molecules. So, and one of which is sugars, carbohydrates, sugars. So the plants take those sugars and they exude them out of the roots. And then, and Elaine Ingham, soil scientist Elaine Ingham, says, cake and cookies, cake and cookies, cake and cookies. So the living things, the bacteria and the fungi in the soil come in and start to consume the sugars that the plants are exuding. And that jump starts the whole soil food web. And so that's why we want living roots in the ground, because nothing happens in the soil very much or for very long until and unless you have living roots in the soil. Item number 5, integrate animals. This is mainly for farmers, homeowners. Not many of us have livestock, although, more homeowners could have chickens. I'm thinking about getting chickens pretty soon, but that's a way of integrating animals into the landscape. But we want to integrate animals. We're talking about the 5 principles of soil health. Principle number 5 is to integrate animals. If you're a farmer, you need to have livestock grazing your crop fields at some point every year or two anyway. Maybe more often than that, but at least every year or two, you need to have livestock grazing in your crop fields. If you don't have livestock, then at least you can honor the animals that are in your landscape. And I'm thinking earthworms, ants, beetles, pill bugs, centipedes, millipedes, snails, and slugs, not to mention the bacteria, the fungi, the protozoa, the nematodes, the microarthropods. Microarthropods simply means a small insect or an insect-like creature, like mites and springtails and thrips are names of microscopic arthropods. Insects are arthropods, spiders are arthropods, crabs, lobsters, these are all arthropods. So arthropod is a general term that applies to a lot of different things, but micro arthropods are a major classification of animals that exist in our soil, in our landscape, that you absolutely have to have these things in order to have fully functioning soil. So what I've been doing, I'll show you what I've been reading from. What I've been doing is going through the 5 principles of soil health, how to make healthy soil. Limit disturbance. That means limit the tillage and the chemical disturbance, such as fertilizers, chemical fertilizers, and insecticides. Number 2, armor the soil surface by having leaves or wood chips or crop residue on the soil surface. Number 3, build diversity. The main way we can do that is to build diversity, diversity of plants, and the plants provide habitat for everything else, and they improve the soil and they provide habitat for everything else. So build diversity in your home landscape or your farm or your forest by having a diversity of plants. And number 4, living roots in the ground. I've already emphasized that enough, but there's nothing better for the soil than living roots in the ground. Number 5, integrate animals. If you don't have livestock, at least honor the animals that are in your livestock if you're by allowing them to exist and to perform their function. Don't be too quick to get rid of pests, because those pests, certainly, using chemical insecticides and chemical, herbicides, insecticides, fungicides is extremely detrimental to the soil, and we don't want to do that to the soil. We don't want to do that to our soil ecosystem, or our ecosystem in the farm or the landscape. Farms are forests and our landscapes. What do we got next here? This slide is here is what is in healthy soil. Over here on the left, you have the plants and the roots in the ground, and those create organic matter. And you have these arrows represent a flow of energy. So if energy is flowing from this to this, that means this is eating this. So if arrows are flowing from the fungi to the arthropods, then that means the arthropods are eating or consuming the fungi, or some part of the fungi, like whatever kind of waste the fungi have. So you have all these arrows here. This is the soil food web. If you do a Google search for soil food web images, USDA, then it's going to pull up this image. There's another really good image of this by Matt Powers, which you can easily find online. If you search for soil food web images, it's going to pull up this. And so this is just something that we need to be aware of. We need to be aware of what are the components of healthy soil. What's the purpose of this whole presentation? The purpose of this whole presentation is to encourage you and me and our neighbors and our friends and our community members and our policymakers to work to heal our land. A major component of that is to heal our soils by doing the 5 principles of soil health, as I just shared with you from Gabe Brown. And when we do that, then we end up with this whole living ecosystem underneath the ground that is healthy soil. So as part of the process of motivation and education, let's just look and see what is in healthy soil. And it includes bacteria, fungi, it includes protozoa, which is like your paramecium and your amoeba and your flagellates. And it includes the nematodes, which are microscopic worms. An incredible mass of living matter is in the soils of the world in the form of nematodes. And the nematodes come in small, medium, and large. They come in all different forms. Some of the nematodes eat bacteria. Some of them eat fungi. Some of them eat other nematodes. Some of the nematodes are omnivores, so they can eat different things. And you can tell which is which. A person kind of trained in these things can tell which kind of nematodes they're looking at based on the mouth parts. The mouth part determines what this nematode can eat. Tragically, there are nematodes that eat corn, for example. And you have to deal with those, but the way to deal with those is not to kill nematodes. When you kill some nematodes, you're killing all the nematodes, and you don't want to do that. You want to have a robust soil ecosystem so that the robust soil ecosystem keeps the bad nematodes in check. You have good and bad fungi, but you want the robust soil ecosystem to keep the bad fungi intact. You have good and bad bacteria, but you want the robust soil ecosystem to keep the bad bacteria in check. What else have we got here? That's about it. I want to encourage you to to take this course. Healing Our Land and Our Climate, starting July 9th. Even if it's after July 9th when you see this, you still might be able to get in. But the way to do that is to go to bioforclimate.org and to scroll down a little bit, and you'll see this on the web page, and you have a place to click to register. That's about all. Let me give you a few thoughts to think about. I've been a climate reporter for 6 years. Climate reporting, climate coverage, the coverage of climate change in the media shapes the way we think about it. And our ideas about climate change are misshapen. They are, our ideas about climate change are distorted because we are getting distorted ideas. We're being misled into thinking that climate change is all about carbon dioxide, and that's not true. We've been led to believe that that addressing climate change is all about lowering emissions, and it's just not true. Our climate woes, our climate difficulties are a result of weather systems that are out of whack, which is because of ecosystems being out of whack. And ecosystems are out of whack primarily because of what we have done to the land. If you want to look at what's wrong with our climate, don't look up, look down. Don't look solely at greenhouse gases. Look at what we've done to the land. So that's all. And the thing is, it's fun. It's fun, it's engaging, it's empowering. There's much more we can do about the climate if we're dealing with the land, because we all have some land. If you don't personally own land, you belong to a community which has some land. There's something we can do to the land in our communities. There's something we can do with the land in our communities. And that is the place to start. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a nice day.